What is up, people? Half Slab Bacon back with another episode in Bacon's World. So, guys, we're up at the gold farm. Like you didn't know there was a reason I wanted to get that super OP frickin' purpur farm set up. It works great, by the way, guys, too. I basically get like a double chest full of purpur blocks, little shy of, off every stack of flowers, and it takes like no time. I spent a couple of minutes and, filled my chesticles full, which is great, because, we're up here, because I want to expand this. Now, let's do a little rundown on this again. Just because I always get the questions, so we're going to do it right in the beginning of the video this time, so hopefully people catch it before, they start playing Minecraft or, doing other stuff while they're watching the video and miss it. So we started originally, these platforms are a 33, and originally we went 13 blocks out for each platform. So it's 33 long with 13 wide. Now this is based on an old broken design by Impulse SV that I always thought was one of the coolest gold farms in terms of its simplicity to build. So that's why I picked it, to make it even easier realistically to build, but also fix it and make it a little more OP because of all the changes that occurred. Now, it works good, don't get me wrong, but we started with the 33 by 12 or 13 because I wanted an odd number for the block pattern going around it, but his original specs were 32 by 12. So this is why we went 32 by 13. Was to kind of use his as the reference for fixing the farm, because I knew what the problems were with the farm. I just had to figure out what was causing them and how to fix them when I did this one for survival tutorial. Of course we got them fixed, but we had the pigman de-aggro issue, which is a problem with all gold farms now, right? Even the current ones still have this issue, and that is because the pigmen have a cooldown timer that they never used to have for how long they will actively call for other pigmen. Now, for those of you that didn't know, that cooldown timer is anywhere between 20 and 40 seconds after they aggro on you. So basically you've got a 20 to 40 second window to start killing some pigmen in, but spawn enough other pigmen in that instantly re-aggro, because there's still some aggro and making calls to get your continuous stream. So it's the most difficult problem. No farm solves this 100% yet. There has been 0 farms that have been able, since they introduced this cooldown, to solve that. So we went and came back and put it out 6 blocks on each side, I believe. Yeah, we're 33 by 19 currently. I've pretty much identified the problem, is I'm killing them too quickly sometimes. So larger platforms should solve that, because then they'll spawn in more frequently. So what you can see is I've prepared a bunch of stuff. Which side did I put the ladder on? Over here, right? So yeah, we'll set up over here. So let's talk while I start laying out the blocks here. We'll kind of go over the mechanics and what kind of numbers we have to play with here. Now, and I have to try and watch my blocks here and make sure I get out the right distance with this first batch, so just bear with me while I do that. Okay, so that's 12 blocks out, right? Now, that should keep our odd number if I... Yeah, Yeah, that'll put us at 31, which is an odd number, which suits the block pattern just fine. So we're good. So let's talk about these spawn mechanics a little more in detail while I do the boring, tedious part. And hopefully this time around I cover them all early enough in the video that we get it for everyone. So the way the Pigro admin works is when a pigman is hurt and the game detects it is from player input, he doesn't have to be directly hit by the player. It just has to be initiated by the player. So a gas fireball works, for example, if you hit the gas ball back. If he is within a 35 block range of you and has line of sight, he aggroes on you. Now, he actually has a 40 block range from the player that he will stay permanently aggroed on you. So as long as you all are always within 40 blocks of him, once you move outside of that 40 blocks or break line of sight, he can and will de-aggro eventually. Even if you're within, and a lot of people don't know about this change or fully understand it, you can be within 2 or 3 blocks from the guy. If you completely break line of sight and wait long enough, eventually all the pigmen will lose aggro. So if you hit them in the nether, it's safest, if you can't get out for sure, just to block yourself in. That's how it is. That is the trick, peeps. That is the trick. Now, because of that, the way we design this is you have to keep in mind we want the pigmen, when they're making their calls, to all be within a 40 block range from me, and at least a bulk of them or a portion of them to have line of sight. As long as some have line of sight, the rest will call each other, and if I'm within 40 blocks of them, they will all target me regardless of whether they all have line of sight or not. So that's why we have the main floor has line of sight, and that was the main problem, was that change to the game code was what I had to adapt to fix Impulse's original design. So because of that, when we go down the rail in the center, this thing really can't be out any farther than 39 blocks for them all to aggro on me. Now you can get out a little bit farther, because if the bulk are making calls, you know, the ones just outside of range will respond to those calls. Specifically, when a pigman makes a call, there's 111 by 111 by 21 block range that every pigman from that the center on that pigman that places the call, every pigman within that range, so 111 in all directions, or a radius of 111, and 21 blocks on the y-axis will respond to his call and will come whether they have line of sight or not. They respond to the call. They don't need line of sight. It just requires him having line of sight to create the track path to you. So because of that range, we had to select a max length we could go with the total farm, and that's why it's, I think it's 33 and 33 is 66, and there's a 25 block gap in between the two ends or the spawning platforms. Okay, so that's 66, 86, 91 blocks. So we're 20 blocks less than the maximum range where they respond to each other's calls. That was by design as well. The reason it is not the maximum 111 long for the whole farm is because of the spawning algorithm. So we have a spawning algorithm for hostile mobs where they will not spawn within 24 blocks from the player. So because we move into the spawning platforms to get them to track us, when we move out, we have to go 24 blocks away before anything starts spawning. So that's why that center spot is 25 blocks. Effectively, what happens is as we travel through it, it pulls the spawning algorithm through the platforms along with us. And then when we hit the other end where we go in and all the pigmen over there start tracking us from every floor, because we're within the 35 block range and have line of sight, so they're all calling each other, not just simply responding to these calls, but even new spawns, they're directly calling each other. At that same time, this entire spawn floor on this side is completely open for spawning. So that was the selection there. The 12 blocks off either side, that was basically just, well, you know what, with Impulse's design, that was big enough for it to work, so I went with that. And, you know, it's easier with a build like this because it's so massive to start with kind of the minimum and build your way up as need be. I mean, it's a long time later, and we're just getting this purpur now, right? Yeah, just getting this purpur now. So, that was the decision. Now, where we can expand up and out to is basically a function of the center block is where the player will be on either side, so where our rail system is. So we could theoretically go 40 blocks long, or 40 blocks wide, I guess that, no, well, yeah, 40, it would make it 40 blocks wide, because going that wide on this is changing your dimensions, right? So these can be 40 this way and 33 that way, and that would kind of be our maximum for getting them to track. Technically, we could go out even farther. I think, if I remember correctly, Snow Crash's donut design, which is by far the most popular one to date, was a diameter of, I believe it was 75 blocks, and the center circle, so the hole in the donut, was 40 blocks. So he stands right in the center. Well, technically it was 41 blocks, right? So he stands right in the center. So you remove 41, you end up with 34 blocks. Yeah, 34 blocks. And we divide that by, well, no, that doesn't make sense. I must be off on a number there. 20 off either side, 75. It would have been had to be, no, 75 is an odd number. Yes, so 22 blocks. Wait, what? Did I just math like terribly bad there? Sorry, guys. That was terrible. Yeah, derp bacon. So let's look at this again. 75 minus 20 or 41. Yeah, see if I can get the numbers right here. Minus 41, duh, is 34. So 15, 16, 17 blocks is how wide the circle was, essentially, around, and I'm out of blocks already. Anyways, so that basically puts the edge of the spawning platform for him 20 blocks away from the player, right? Which means the inside of his ring, they can't spawn on. You got to go 4 more blocks out. Now, because it's a circle, it doesn't work to be an exact 4 blocks because of the way Euclidean spheres talk much work. However, he's still losing some on the inside of the platform, and he doesn't go anywhere near out enough on the radius. Yet it was always effective enough till they introduced that de-aggro thing. And although he never mentioned it in the video, and I noticed none of the big YouTubers that use that farm mentioned it either, his farm has the same de-aggro problem everybody else does. It's just the way they work the mechanic. So the goal then is to find a size of spawn platform for your individual killing method specifically that happens to get a proper ratio of new spawns to kills to constantly keep new guys aggroing. Now, there's no like perfect formula for this, right? With every farm it's going to be different. So that's why we kind of tried 6 so I could see the result, and we're going out now to essentially double the size of the farm because 12 is going to make 31. Again, I'm picking an odd number for that block pattern, right? Yes, for the block pattern is really why we're picking that number. But essentially, after my observations here, I'm kind of feeling that, like, essentially more than doubling our spawn area. Doubling our original spawn area in terms of blocks used is probably going to be around optimal. That's why we're not going out all the way to 40 blocks. I'm guessing this will be optimal. It's a gut feeling at this point. We'll see. All right, guys. So the roof extensions are in. And now all we have to do is get up to each floor and rebuild them. So, yes, I was about to say, here's hoping this works out. But it looks like it did. So I'm basically just going to close them off like that. And then I did fall from the roof once already, by the way. In case you were wondering, that's why I wore my elytra. I caused it. Yeah. If you're going to do this, keep your freaking ender pearls off your bar. That's all I got to say about that. So what I actually think I'm going to do here is I'm going to go out this way and do my border first. Crap. And this is one of the reasons why. And I'm actually going to fill in like the excess area, I think, of each one before I take the blocks out in the middle and make them solid white. That way I can drop down to the next floor and try and salvage as many blocks as possible. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more briefly while I start this first floor about the whole 25 block gap there and the 35 block line of sight and the 40 block aggro range. Now, the 40 block aggro range is from the pigmen, so technically we can go out more than 40 blocks, right? But we want one of the pigmen that's making the calls and aggroing on me to be within 35 blocks as long as I'm within eyesight, line of sight, basically at all times. And that's why we're not pushing rate to 40. Also, quite frankly, I don't think we need to move out that far. But yeah, there's method to the madness. Because of the way the multiple floor things work, you have to take into account your diagonals and stuff for the 40 block range. So you want to keep them within a 40 block range of you, ideally, even though they will respond to their own calls farther out than that. They can only track you within that 40 block range, right? So when I move out a line of sight, I want them all actively tracking me, not just tracking the pigman that's calling them. And that's kind of where the numbers are based. So that's why we're not even bothering to try and just exploit that whole 111 blocks, is to kind of keep all those things going on all at once. It's a thing, peeps. This is how you try and build efficient farms, is by looking at all the numbers, not just some of the numbers, all the numbers. So, yeah, essentially, that's also the big part of that 25 block gap is they can all spawn in, but also, if you think about it, when we hit the other one, half these spawn platforms are still within that 35 block range, right? That's kind of the other big factor, is half of each spawn platform is still actively targeting me, even if they're new spawns, new calls, right? So we're kind of pulling the whole spawning in along with us as we travel along the rail track and doing our best to keep as many of them in range as possible while expanding the spawning area. That's kind of the thing there. Because then, as we move through that other one, we have ones in line of sight, and because they're only 25 blocks away, they can call these guys and pull those guys towards me as well, right? You follow my thought process there on that? Because as soon as we move into that side and they gain line of sight, literally every single one of them is within targeting range of me, within the 40 block aggro range. Even with the platforms out this far, they will be. And on top of that, basically, every single guy over here is within range of them. Well, not basically, exactly every single guy over here is within range of their calls to respond to their calls and come out and chase and target. So that's kind of the method to the madness there, and how we try and keep kind of that closed loop thing going on with the pigments. Okay, so this is actually a pretty good sign if you check it out. This is the last bank of platforms, and with the other three, also when I start the top layer on each one on this side, it's laggy. Yeah, that's a thing. But there's already so many spawns on the other three that I increased the size of, that while I've been doing this, even though there's plenty of spawn space, that's the first guy to have spawned. So that is very, very good news. Last couple blocks of the last platform in. So yeah, I want to leave this open, and I'm hoping we don't get too many pigmen falling like I just did, because I didn't hit space. That could have been disastrous. But we got it all placed without punching a single pigman. Came close a couple times. That's good. And I only fell in the beginning, and just now, I guess, technically. But yeah, I think it's looking pretty good, guys. All in all. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I don't see any spots I missed or anything. So I'm going to clean this up. You know, put this last block in here. I should have a block on me, actually. And double check the sealing, make sure it's all sealed up, because I did punch through it once or twice. Yeah, it looks good. And put my blocks away, and then I am going to go back to base and come back up the way I normally do, so we get a proper representation of what actually coming up and using this now would be like. And I'll fire it up and run it for a bit and bring you guys back in after the fact. I'll be RBs. Oh yeah, guys. So I ended up taking a little more time to work on the farm than planned after my last cut. Actually, I had this episode finished and was ready to render and upload the next day, and my internet went out for like 6 days. it sucked. Let me tell you. Yeah. But I took the time to work out the kinks on this and decided I would record this last section just so you can see. As you can see, this thing is humming along pretty good now. Really good, actually. The aggro is almost loss of aggro is almost a non-existent issue now. Pretty much in the beginning, just gotta watch it and, you know, make sure it's humming along good. And I'm hearing that on each side every time. And once it's good and going, I'm pretty good to leave it overnight, and usually it's still running the next day, or it runs for several hours before it finally loses aggro. So yeah, it still happens, but it's about as minimal as it could get. I mean, you hear them making the noise and all this stuff. It's incredible. You can see my levels, and by the way, I died 3 times. Let me just show you, like, even though, there it is, yeah. Even though they're not necessarily aggro right away, they do end up getting the aggro eventually after we run through. So, let's go over the changes, and arguably the ones that made the most difference, because there are some important ones here. And this is the one that made the biggest difference. So I noticed after a while, and actually, we're gonna need, let's get this stuff out. Nope, not that. Well, whatever. We're gonna need this stuff on for sure, so I can show you everything. And let's put those away and get these back on the just in case. Let's get rid of this and this. Here. We just go bam, 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 bam. There. So, yeah. The whole track's powered now. And you can see I closed off the first floor. The whole track's powered. I moved our switches back a little bit. And you can actually see, let's get rid of that. Arguably the most difference was adjusting the timing for the new spawn levels. So I adjusted this so it's all powered, and I moved this back a little bit. Hey, if we go down here, oh yes, I died like 3 times and lost almost 1,000 levels in the figuring all this out. We might see why they, oh no, sometimes the pigmen manage to fall through there and get down here. So yeah, that's why there's golems here now. Cause yeah, they snuck up on me and killed my faces, and it sucked. And that 300 levels I had was gone. And yeah, the other time I jumped off and fell to my death because I'm an idiot. No, it was due to lag. So yeah, what I actually did down here, guys, was I moved this back. The rail used to be above this one, the detector. It's now over here. So we've added an extra 3 block spacing before this engages. And then I inverted one of these just by putting the torch here, here. So that instead of them killing every single pigman each time, it'll kill a portion. Because they're all like that now, you can see. Where we've got some are in there, but the ones that drop here will end up crawling back up, and all 4 are like that now. And what that did is I found it slows down the killing enough that there's always some alive on each side, but at the same sense there's always some dying, because when this one's on, that one's, well, here, you'll see. We'll do the thing. Can I have a minecart, please? And thank you, game. Thank you, game. Thank you, game. So if we go over it here now, we'll just let that go back. what you can see is it's now squishing the ones on this side, but it actually did push some a bit over. And as ones are falling, they'll drop, so doesn't matter where I am on each side, some's always dying, because then we would have continued on this path, right? And that would have started squishing that side, but the ones on this side are still alive. And that just helps keep the aggro, I've found. Yeah, it's a thing. And the extra timing, moving it out a little bit, means that we're switching and beginning to squish some before we come in, which I also found was hugely beneficial. And then finally, the last change, let's actually go for a fly here, or do that. Can I? There we go. Let's just get enough distance that we lose aggro on these guys. That should be good. Yeah, that should be good. I hope it's good. We'll find out in a minute. Let's pick one that's less populated, maybe. Did I get... Oh, I suck at this. I suck at this. See if we can get it from this side. Oh, whoa. Yeah, I shouldn't be doing this with render distance set as high as it is, but it's a thing. So what I did was I closed off this side, and I actually found that when I was running it for a good long time, the magma cubes were building up too much because this was so big. So I drilled the hole, and we've got another iron golem on top of this guy's head, and you can see how I kind of, his head's poking part way up to the top there. Let's eat. Oh, this is not working out the way I thought it was going to. Jeez, Louise, let's just go up. And I will show you from up here. Yes, yes, yes. We'll do it that way then. We'll do it that way. We'll go back up. We'll go... I tried a whole bunch of stuff, guys. I tried building platforms across. I tried a whole bunch of stuff. And in the testing, what I found was eventually the magma cubes built up enough on the top two floors that they started decreasing spawns, and that was causing me to lose aggro. So, oh, and another thing. Render distance. I turned mine up to 16. Above 12 is where you want to be for a gold farm. All farms are sensitive. Anything lower than 10 like kills your spawns, like cuts them in half. But gold farms seem to like being the higher the better. So I go up to 16. It causes a little bit of lag, but it also gets me really solid spawn rates. So you can see what I've done here. He's visible on that floor through that hole there. And then he's also visible from this floor through that hole here with the magma cubes. And that just helps keep their spawns from being an issue, because now they're targeting him on all 3 floors and dropping down. I thought that guy was aggro for a sec. So between that and this lovely switcheroo over there, we've now got a pretty solid experience. I was literally able to run it for days and days and days and fill these things up, run it for hours on end, and it almost never lost aggro. Or if it did, it was usually in the beginning and within the first hour, and I just had to kind of fire some arrows and get her going again. Another change I made was I switched this over to sticks, because about 7 or 8 swords for a blaze rod and 2 sticks per sword. So it encourages less waste, which makes me warm and fuzzy inside, guys. So now it runs so good. Like, I'm so happy with it. Honestly, I'm so happy with it now. We have all the gold, guys. All the gold. I am sorry that the video came out a little later than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting my ISP to be shut off. Unfortunately, it's a thing. It's the way it is. What you gonna do? I still throw this stuff in a chest just to be safe, but it's almost never a concern. And there's my phone going off, but you can pretty much see when we come up, if we start her up and get going, what you'll see happen is some of them tend to survive and start chasing you. And you can hear them get crushed on the way out. And then as you come to the other side, you've got some chasing. And shortly within the first few runs, I start hearing them. See, we can start hearing these guys aggro. And then the new spawns start chasing. And it actually runs smoothly enough now that I will even see them spawn in right in front of my face. Like, look, this is what I look for when I start it up. Once I start getting heavy spawns like that, because there's always some in the bottom, the pack spawning algorithm will keep spawning them in on the bottom. If there's kind of more there for it to spawn around, because that does help determine where spawns get placed. Is it likes to pack spawn around other mobs. So I found that switch made a huge difference. Now I've got all the gold. It's so overpowered. I'm so happy, and we can move on to some other things. So yeah, guys, I think we're pretty much done with this farm. It's been a long time in the making, but it is where I am happy with it. I would think a 33 by 33 spawn space is adequate, even though this one ended up being 35 by 33. And just having those golems in the middle, and the track set up like it is, and the crusher set up like it is amazeballs. So, as always, guys, smash that like if you enjoyed the episode to help others like yourself who might enjoy the content find the channel. And if you're new and you haven't already, hit that sub button for more videos, peoples. As always, thanks for watching. Bye.